Chapter 2. The Vedic Period. Vedic Culture. The period when Aryans first settled in India is known as the early Vedic period, that is 1500 to 1000 BC. Between 1000 BC to 500 BC, when iron had come to be used, Aryans followed the course of the rivers and settled along the valley of the Yamuna and the Ganga. The iron tools helped them to clear the forests. They moved in the eastward and the southeastward directions. Aryans, so far tribal and nomadic in nature, gradually settled in the Gangetic Valley. This period is known as the later Vedic age, which lasted from the 1000 BC to 500 BC. The culture of this period is referred to as the Vedic culture because it was based on the Vedic texts. Sources. A. Literary sources. The Vedic texts may be divided into two broad chronological groups: the early Vedic texts 1500 to 1000 BC and the later Vedic texts 1000 to 500 BC. The early Vedic texts 1500 to 1000 BC, when most of the hymns of the Rig Veda were composed, and the later Vedic texts 1000 to 500 BC, to which belong the remaining Vedas and their branches, the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, etc. The two periods correspond the two phases of Aryan expansion in India. The social, economic, political and religious aspects of the life of the people came to be reflected in the Vedic literature. Thus, Vedas became the storehouse of knowledge. The Vedic literature was written in Sanskrit. The term Veda has been derived from the Sanskrit word Vid, which means knowledge. Vedic literature is divided into two parts, namely the Shruti and the Smriti. It is believed that the Shruti was revealed to the sages by God, and they passed on that knowledge orally from generation to generation. On the other hand, Smriti literature was composed by the rishis. The Vedic literature can be classified into the following categories. First, the four Vedas, that is, the Rig, Sam, Yajur and Atharva Vedas and their Samhitas. Second, the Brahmanas attached to each Samhita. Third, the Aranyakas. And fourth, the Upanishads. 1. The Vedas. First, the Rig Veda. It is the oldest religious text in the world and is therefore known as the first testament of mankind. It is divided into 10 mandalas. It is said to have been composed during the early Vedic period. The hymns are dedicated by the sages to gods. They were passed on orally from teachers to their disciples. The Rig Vedic hymns are the authentic sources of knowledge of the life of people of the time. Much of the Indian philosophy is based on the Rig Veda. It also contains the famous Gayatri Mantra. Although religious in nature, the Vedas are a valuable source of information on various subjects. Second, the Sama Veda. The term Sama means sweet song or the melody. In this Veda, some of the hymns are borrowed from the Rig Veda. These hymns were meant to be sung at the time of the sacrifice by the priests. Third, the Yajur Veda. It deals with hymns recited during the performance of yagnas. The hymns in this Veda throw light on the social and religious lives of the Aryans. Fourth, the Atharva Veda. The hymns contained in this Veda deal with magic and charm. Most of the hymns are taken from the Rig Veda. Besides the powers of ghosts and spirits, the hymns deal with Gyan, that is knowledge, karma, that's action, and upasana, that is invocation. Some hymns also deal with medicines for the treatment of various diseases.
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें.
The Brahmanas. Written after the Vedas as the simple commentary, the Brahmanas are in prose. They explain the social and religious importance of rituals as well as the value of sacrifices. The Brahmanas are of great historical value. Each Veda has several Brahmanas, the Aranyakas. They are known as forest books written for the guidance of the hermits and the students living in the forests. They form the concluding part of the Brahmanas. Their main themes are mysticism and philosophy. The Upanishads. They are philosophical commentaries on the Vedas. The doctrines such as karma, moksha, and maya are explained in detail. The Upanishads form the basic source of Indian philosophy. Composed by different sages, they are said to form the foundation on which later additions to Vedic literature rest. Allied Vedic literature. First, the Vedangas. They deal with the ways in which the Vedas ought to be chanted and are thus important in the understanding of the Vedas. The 6 Vedangas deal with pronunciation, grammar, etymology, metrics, and astronomy. Second, the Sutras. They are divided into 3 groups. The Shruta Sutras, which deal with yagna and sacrifices. The Griha Sutras or Samartha Sutras, which deal with the ceremonies connected with family life. And the Dharma Sutras, which provide rules of conduct for the various classes of people and the various stages in their life. Third, the Upavedas. As the name suggests, they are subsidiary Vedas. They are 4 in number. Ayurveda deals with Indian system of medicine. The Dhanurveda describes the art of warfare. Gandharva Veda describes the art of music. And Shilpa Veda deals with art and architecture. Fourth, Darshanas. There are 6 schools of Indian philosophy known as Shad Darshanas. They include Nyaya Darshana, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa, and Uttar Mimamsa. They all propagate the virtues of life and are opposed to external rituals. Fifth, the Dharma Shastras. The law books called the Dharma Sutras and the Smritis together with their commentaries are called Dharma Shastras. They lay down the duties for different classes of people as well as for kings and their officials. Manusmriti gives the description of Hindu code of law including the Varnas, that's the castes, and the ashramas. Sixth, the Ashtadhyayi. It is a treatise on Sanskrit grammar by Panini. Information is given about the roots of the words and the context in which they were used in Vedic literature. 2. The epics. The epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, are important epics. Ramayana. The Ramayana was originally composed in Sanskrit. The Sanskrit version is said to be the work of Maharishi Valmiki. The story of Ramayana revolves around Rama and the abduction of his wife Sita by a demon king, Ravana. The battle between Rama and Ravana, duty, devotion, and love shown by the brothers is told in detail. Rama was the eldest of the 4 sons of Dashratha, the ruler of Ayodhya, who had 3 queens. Rama was the son of the eldest queen, Kaushalya, and was the heir apparent to the throne. After Rama was married to Sita, he was to be installed as the king. At this juncture, King Dashratha's other queen, Kekai, reminded him of the promise he had made earlier to grant her a wish. Kekai wanted her son Bharata to be the king and Rama to be sent into exile for 14 years. Rama, along with his wife Sita and brother Lakshmana, went to the forest. In disguise of a sannyasi, Ravana, the demon king, abducted Sita and took her to Lanka. Rama took the help of Sugriva and Hanuman. They crossed the ocean and defeated Ravana. Rama then, along with Sita and Lakshmana, proceeded home, having completed the 14 years exile. He was crowned the king.
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें।
Mahabharata. Believed to be the work of sage Vyasa, Mahabharata is written in Sanskrit language. Originally, it was called Jaya, or the collection dealing with victory. Subsequently, it came to be known as Bharata, because it contains the stories of the descendants of one of the earliest Vedic tribes called Bharata. The final compilation came to be known as Mahabharata. The Bhagavad Gita, which forms a part of Mahabharata, is one of the most popular religious texts considered sacred by many people in India. The interests of the self might conflict with duty, and whenever there is such a conflict, the Bhagavad Gita gives the answer. That is the secret of the undying popularity of this religious text. It teaches that the soul is immortal. The importance of the epics. First, the epics serve as the main source of information on the political institutions and the social and cultural organizations of the epic age. Second, they provide information on various Aryan kingdoms, their armies, and the weapons they used. The Kshatriyas were entrusted with the defense of their kingdoms, and they believed that death on the battlefield was the noblest act in the life of a warrior. Third, the epics are considered as the finest literary works of the ancient period and are acclaimed for their literary and philosophical value. Fourth, they reveal the high ideals of family life of the Aryans. Fifth, the great heroes depicted in the epics are the embodiment of high moral principles and made a great impact on successive generations. Sixth, the Bhagavad Gita elaborates the karma philosophy and the immortality of the soul. Mahabharata. The king of Hastinapur, Dhritarashtra, had 100 sons known as Kauravas. Dhritarashtra's brother Pandu, who had died earlier, had 5 sons known as Pandavas. In course of time, Dhritarashtra named eldest Pandava, Yudhishthir, his successor. This angered Duryodhana, the eldest of the Kauravas. It became the cause of enmity and jealousy between the cousins. Once during a game of dice, Yudhishthir, the eldest Pandava, lost his kingdom as well as Draupadi to Duryodhana. In accordance with the terms of agreement, the Pandavas had to go into exile. After the completion of the exile, the Pandavas asked the Kauravas to return their kingdom, but Duryodhana refused to give anything. So, war, known as the Mahabharata, followed. Arjuna, a Pandava, was reluctant to fight. Krishna ultimately gave him a discourse and prevailed upon him to do his duty. This discourse at the battlefield is compiled in the form of Bhagavad Gita. It forms a part of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata war lasted for 18 days. In the war, all the Kaurava brothers were killed and Yudhishthir became the ruler of Hastinapur.
अगर आप अपने सिलेबस के सारे चैप्टर्स इस फॉर्मेट में देखना चाहते हैं तो हमें डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए नंबर पर कॉल करें। ऐसे ही और एजुकेशनल वीडियोस देखने के लिए हमारे चैनल होम रिवाइज को सब्सक्राइब करें।